Lore Together is proud to be part of the Boss Rush Games Network. Feel free to find out more at bossrushgames.com/network. Hi, I'm Safi.
And I'm Mystic.
And this is Lore Together. This is the podcast where a husband and wife team go over all of the world building, characters, and storytelling in video games because it's what we like to do together. We lore together.
Yep, and this is episode 56.
Thanks for joining us.
But before we get into the episode, I think many of you know what's coming.
Oh, longtime listeners definitely do.
If you'd like to contact us, you can do that over on Twitter at Lore Together, on Instagram at Lore Together, or through email at loretogether@gmail.com. And if you'd like to support this podcast, you can pay a per episode pledge over at patreon.com/loretogether to get early access to episodes, access to Q&As, mini episodes, and other things.
Yeah. Hopefully you'll see us there. Or if you'd like to join us in the Boss Rush Discord, please do, because we love seeing you there.
And we ask you to please rate us on whatever podcast platform you are listening to us on. Mm-hmm. We know that iTunes and Spotify both allow ratings, as I think Podchaser does as well.
Yes.
So we appreciate 5 stars if you can do it.
Please. We hope you like us that much, at least. Okay, so once again, I worked from home, and once again, I have no idea what you ended up doing because I didn't accidentally peek.
That's impressive considering I had a lot of wiki pages up for this one.
Yeah, but I think it was the way you covertly snuck in and out with all of the research over the past few days. All right, so what do you have for me today, Mystic?
Okay, so we're going back to one of our big franchises.
You did promise that.
Myst, Elder Scrolls, Mass Effect, Fallout, which is yours, Dragon Age, which is yours, so obviously it's not one of those. Mm-hmm. Guild Wars is going to become one of my big franchises just because I want to.
I think if you love an MMO, it's easy to find lore things to just get into it.
But we are going to step back into Myst.
Of course we are. I should have known. It's your favorite. It's your absolute favorite. So
surprisingly, I don't know if I would call Myst my favorite Cyan game anymore.
Oh, okay. Just because of Abduction?
I do think Abduction is better. At the same time, that may be because it's more contained.
I will say, I think Myst is what ended up burgeoning your love of the genre, mm-hmm. Whereas Abduction, I think, is just a finely crafted storytelling experience, as long as you don't mind slogging through puzzles, which
most of the puzzles in Abduction aren't bad. There's just a couple that why are we
you say that, but I just do not think the same way as a lot of people do with those puzzles.
But there's the difference between this is a puzzle that's just not on your style, and then the labyrinth.
Right. Right.
So the last time we talked about it was episode 27. You had mentioned you thought it was a 2-parter. It wasn't. It's a bit hard to do 2-parters for single games in the Myst series because there's not a lot of story in them. The first one we kind of did because that was our first episode.
Right. And we also added a lot more stuff outside of the hype of the game, the reason why it was really important, kind of almost historically to video games in general, mm-hmm. How much it sold, how inspirational it was, to the point that Disney, I still can't get over the Disney Island. It needs to happen. So listen to our first episode if you didn't realize Disney almost did an amusement park-based Myst experience. It would have been so good. So
we're going to dive into Myst 3 Exile.
Yes, I've seen this cover somewhere, probably around our mm-hmm. bookshelves or whatever.
Came out in 2001, developed by Presto Studios.
Oh.
Not Cyan.
Interesting. So did they outsource it?
So at this point, Myst was kind of owned by Ubisoft.
Oh.
It gets weird. And in fact, for the longest time, you couldn't get Myst 3 or Myst 4 on any platform because Ubisoft had the rights to them.
I feel like with a lot of those huge publishers, that's just something that happens. A lot of wonkiness when it comes to who owns what.
Especially with the old franchises, which...
Yeah.
Presto Studios is a developer we will eventually cover for their Journeyman Project series, which is another adventure, a puzzle adventure genre. Kind of like Myst, but sci-fi.
Okay.
And this, unfortunately, was their second to last project. Their last being an Xbox party game called Whacked.
Yeah, which, of course, I have no memory of, which means it just did not go well, unfortunately.
Yeah, it didn't go very well. And a lot of their people actually went to work in Hollywood.
Oh, like as in like special effects?
Yeah, special effects, animation, that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. But we can jump right into the story here. And there's going to be... So we actually have a lot more character in this one than we've had previously.
Interesting.
We've talked a lot about Atris, obviously. Mm-hmm. And we've talked little bits about Catherine and Anna and Cirrus and Akinar and Gen and all these other people. You know, there's little glimpses into a lot of those characters. Here we actually have one of the main characters for this game. We have like their full thoughts and history.
I will say, though, that what you're talking about is our experience of those characters within the games.
Yes.
Because when we went over the Book of Atris, parts 1 and 2, we got a lot of details about...
Well, that's where I'm pulling Anna from, but yeah.
Yeah, a lot of detail of, like, most, if not all of those characters there.
Yeah.
Within the game, there's definitely, obviously, a backbone of a solid history, but you don't get the whole story.
Right.
And nor do you need it to have a good game experience.
So just to recap, in Myst, you do not play as a named character.
Correct.
You are affectionately referred to as the Stranger, or as Zork called them, the Afghan Cap.
Oh, yeah, the Stranger, which of course makes me immediately think of Albert Camus, and I'm pretty sure I've said that before.
Yeah. So after the events of Myst Island, which we've covered in episodes 1, 2, and 27.
Yes, because Riven is essentially almost directly following what the Stranger does.
Yes.
Yeah, on Myst.
And I don't think we had a timeline for how long after Myst Riven happens.
Right.
We don't have a timeline here either for after Riven, how long this happens. But we do start to get a timeline building in the background here a little bit.
Right.
So the events of Myst Island are very painful for Atris and Catherine, obviously. You know, the library's been razed. Their sons are gone.
Yeah, and also kind of proven to be awful people, which is so bizarre because as one of the things I couldn't get over in the second episode we ever did was how awful Akinar and Cirrus are.
Oh, we're going to really dive into it today.
Yeah.
Exile is about, broad strokes, one world that they dealt with.
And that's the thing is like, you know, once you hear about Catherine and Atris in the Book of Atris and the struggles they went through and how much they survived trauma, what the heck did they do? Or what bad luck befell them to have such awful sons?
Yeah.
It's a tragic story. Like, you can't always be a good person and think that's enough to raise a good person yourself.
Yeah. So Dunny is underground on Earth. Earth is an age in this literary universe of the Dunny.
And the Dunnies somehow have a pocket dimension here. Which
yes.
is cool. I'll accept it.
We're probably... I know some canon aficionado, Gondar, you may disparage this real reductionism of Myst, but
and if you
strokes.
would like to admonish our lore knowledge, you can become a patron.
Yeah, I'm just trying to condense the whole universe into like a brief paragraph.
This is a bite-sized chunk, guys. Yeah. Bite-sized chunk.
So Atris has been searching through lost ages in Dunny, to find other Dunny survivors and other Roné. I don't know if we've covered the Roné before. The Roné are what the Dunny were. The Dunny itself is a splinter group of the Roné.
No, we have not talked about the Roné.
Okay, file that away for like 20 episodes or 40 episodes from now.
Great. It's going to be another year before I hear about the Roné. Fantastic. I'm just
longer, actually, because they're in Myst. They're not even in Myst 4. They're in Uru, which is between Myst 4 and Myst 5.
Guys, literally, this is going to be the conversation.
It's a what'd you call him? Hanging Chad.
Hanging Chad. It's going to be in our house like for months now. Be like, hey, can you tell me where such and such is? I don't know. Can you tell me about the Roné? Finally.
So he eventually does find other Dunny survivors in other ages and tries to restore the Dunny cavern, and that doesn't go well. So he basically sets about writing a new age for all these refugee Dunny called Relishan.
Relishan.
Yes.
I don't like the name. I don't have a good reason, though. I just don't. I don't like it. Relishan. It sounds like a Teflon derivative. That's what it is. Okay. He's allowed to name it whatever he wants.
I'm
Good
sure
for
it's
you,
a lovely
Atris.
island in the middle of an ocean somewhere.
Yes, that's exactly it. Maybe with a reference to people that were there before but now completely abandoned. Yes, absolutely.
So he calls the stranger to Tamana. Sorry, let me go back.
Uh-oh.
Because I missed one line in that paragraph. Atreus has relocated his family to Tamana, which is on Earth.
Okay, so for right now, his family is just him, Catherine. Is Tiana even still?
Tiana is gone. Tiana is dead.
Okay, that's what I thought.
At this point, he does have a young daughter.
Oh.
But we're talking, like, infant, like, really young.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they were kind of like, we messed up. Let's try one more time.
Yeah.
Jeez, that's
Yesha.
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 That is, I'm so morbid, but okay. Oh, man.
So they're on Tamana on Earth. He calls the stranger to come to Tamana and show them Releashan. Atreus is running a bit late. We actually meet Catherine and Yesha first.
Oh, okay.
Atreus has grown a bit paranoid as of late, checking every lock and securing everything. We'll get to why later.
Other than the trauma of being locked away in a cage of his son's creation.
Well,
yeah.
It wasn't. Well, yeah, fair. Just as we're about to depart, basically, Releashan is under glass.
Yeah.
And we're in Atreus' study. As we're about to depart when Atreus arrives, a mysterious figure links into Atreus' study, tosses a fire marble into the curtains and setting them ablaze.
What?
And breaks the cage holding Releashan and takes it before linking somewhere, dropping a book at their feet.
Oh my. So basically he's like, now you have to stay here? Oh my gosh.
Well, no. Basically, he dropped a linking book.
Oh.
And Atreus is separated from us by these flames, and he's trying to, put them out and everything. So it's kind of up to us to pursue the thief and reclaim Releashan.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, considering how much he helped you after you... Yeah, I was just roaming the desert, and suddenly here I am,
yeah.
and now this is my adopted family, I guess.
Yeah, so our goal is to get Releashan before the book and the refugeed Dunny are lost forever at this point.
So there's already refugee Dunny there?
Yeah.
So he's been successful in finding...
Yeah.
Good for him. Oh my God. Like Atreus, man, like he's just full of ambition and gusto.
Just to give you another hanging Chad.
Great. That's all I want in my life is just more hanging Chads. Let's just call it.
We do not actually get to see Releashan in this game. We do see it, I believe, in Myst 5.
5? I have to wait till Myst 5 before I can see this beautiful, beautiful haven for these refugees.
And even then, we see it only briefly.
Oh my, I'm so mad. Just, flip all the tables. We have a beautiful new table out there. I'm going to flip right now.
That's the basic plot. That is our driving goal of what we're doing here.
That's fair.
But the Myst games have always been more about than just basic plot. I mean, every single game has a mess of journals.
There's a lot of storytelling that is really rooted in essentially set dressing.
Yeah. The worlds we're going to explore in this game are all part of a series of lessons Atreus wrote and crafted for his two sons.
Uh-oh.
Basically, it's, I'm going to teach you the basics of the art by having you go through, essentially, school. It's basically, there's these series of 4 ages, Jananin, Edana, Voltaic, and Amateria.
Okay.
That all had to be done before they could access the 5th age, Narayan.
Narayan.
Which was the only one that had an actual civilization called the Narayani.
So he was going to try to teach them possibly ethical lessons before he could interfere with people.
He's teaching them how worlds work.
Ah, okay.
So, and this is where our thief comes from. He is a Narayani named Saavedro.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's discuss how Myst 3 handles ages. As lessons, they are all teaching something. Jananin is, like so many of Atreus' ages, an island.
In the middle of the ocean?
Yes. It is the ring of a long-extinct caldera with large tusks reaching towards the sky which house rooms.
Okay.
Atop the large central one is an observatory. This age is all about teaching the fundamentals of design, things like basic physics, light refraction, and it makes sense as kind of a hub world. It's kind of like the 100 level class.
Yeah, exactly. And it just also makes sense why it would just be an island, because you need to know the difference between water and land and what you can do with it.
Edana is a living tree-like edifice that rises about 200 feet above an ocean. So,
it's
an island.
A tree island, okay. Like a singular tree island. Yeah. Okay.
Inside the trunk, branches and all other life forms grow inward, weaving a labyrinth which houses 3 different ecosystems. The upper level of Adana is Deadwood Ridge, actually a formation of huge interior branches. Below that is a lush, densely canopied forest.
Ooh.
And finally, the base of Adana is a murky, low-lit saltwater swamp.
That's kind of pretty fun. I would be interested to see how that looks.
And this one is all about how nature encourages mutual dependence.
Yes.
Basically, how creatures react to light, physical stimuli, electricity, and other life forms.
The necessity of building a balanced ecosystem if it's going to sustain itself.
Yeah. Voltaic is, well, kind of self-explanatory.
We're talking about volcanoes and lava. Is it an island in the middle of lava?
It is an island.
In the middle of lava?
No.
Okay.
It has a giant, like, canyon gorge type thing going through it. A hydroelectric dam is at one end where the water spills in.
Okay.
And then deep in the island is a lava pool that has a couple chambers in it that you can kind of channel and harness these two different types of power in different ways to activate a series of mechanisms and complete the circuit to get power flowing to this final location.
Oh.
So you can see it's kind of like tests. It's like applied sciences for the most part.
Right. So he's setting this up so that way they learn enough about the basics so that way they can start really digging into.
Yeah.
Okay.
And finally we have, of the four, we have Amateria, which is an island of basalt formations, crystals, and pagoda-inspired architecture.
Ooh.
The wiki said Oriental-inspired architecture. I wasn't exactly comfortable using that term.
Yeah.
Its purpose was to teach Cirrus and Achenar the tenet that dynamic forces spur change. When complete, this one's actually almost like a roller coaster. It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Because you basically get into a ball and it goes through all these different mechanisms that you basically put in motion.
Oh, okay. So a lot of the same like thematically gameplay stuff where we've had a lot of, you're on a track vehicle situation. We're kind of getting back to that there.
Yeah, and this one's all about mechanics and weights and physics and stuff like that. And you had to do all of those. Basically, each of them include a little symbol that you had to put into a reader to get to the final one. So basically, it's kind of like you have to pass all the tests, then you can unlock the final age.
Okay.
Narayan is the final age, teaching Atreus' fourth and central principle that balanced systems stimulate civilization. You will notice in none of these lessons up till now have there been ethics.
Yeah, no ethics. You're absolutely right. So is that your theory, or is that the theory that in the midst of teaching...
That's my theory.
Yeah. So in the midst of teaching these tools to let these young men be gods, he did not teach them the humility necessary to teach that they were actually helping their fellow individuals, their fellow man to a certain extent.
I believe at this point, I may be wrong about this.
Okay.
Because it's technically not canonical.
Right.
But I believe at this point, Cirrus and Achenar have already met the Black Pirates on the Mechanical Age.
When he's starting to... So Cirrus and Achenar met these pirates when they were very young.
Yeah.
Like early teens, I would think then.
Yeah.
Wow.
So definitely an impressionable time to be dealing with those guys. Narayan is an ocean world, but not in the same way as all the other ones that Atreus has written.
Okay.
Its geology is kind of unlike anything we've really seen in the series up to this point.
Okay.
I'd say it's a bit like Catherine's age she took Atreus to. If you remember, it's the Taurus one. It's not as fantastical, but there's some weirdness here.
Yeah, because Catherine writes beautifully absurd, but...
somewhat stable ages.
Ages.
Although one of those ages does kill Anna. So,
wait, what?
Yeah, I don't remember the name of the age, but Anna goes to one of Catherine's worlds and dies.
How?
I don't remember.
What?
I just remember it being like a one-line thing. And Catherine takes it pretty hard, I think.
I would too if somebody died in something I created. Jeez.
Yeah. So.
Oh, man.
This Narayan is pretty fantastical, though, in a weird way. Unlike other, a lot of Atreus' stuff seemed pretty grounded, in reality, even though if it's not completely realistic.
And I would think that would speak to the caution he probably has after what he experienced when his dad was trying to train him. Because essentially, he realized how much damage you can do just by erasing a word.
Mm-hmm. And the sea here flows through gaps around the age. And from these rifts that go all the way down, the waterfall steam at the bottom and it flows up, and these puffer spores, these seeds, soar upwards.
Whoa.
And the Narayani kind of coax these spores into the branches of the trees that they live in and grow the branches around it. Kind of, it's like basically the fact that it's floating is kind of like a support structure.
Oh.
And so they slowly build this lattice work structure. And it takes a lot of maintenance to keep these structures sound and keep the tree alive.
But these are trees growing in the middle of these big...
In the middle of the water.
Yeah.
And basically the rigorous discipline of constantly tending these trees, because otherwise the whole civilization collapses. Like, they've done such a good job of doing this over thousands of years that they've actually managed to build cities.
Wow. But it's still on a very fragile art form. Okay.
So all of the discipline required to tend these trees have become like a ritualistic set of traditions and ceremonies.
Wow.
So it's a very tradition-bound civilization because their existence depends on it.
Right, exactly.
And we have a unique character here, actually. Saavedra is played by Brad Dourif, who many will know as Grima Wormtongue from the Lord of the Rings film.
Oh, wow.
As well as from Chucky, I believe.
Maybe?
I know him most as Lon Suitor from Star Trek Voyager, where he played a murderous Beta Z Maquis.
Yes! Okay. Actually, interesting that you brought this up, because I remember reading up about that Betazoid, because it's almost like their version of kind of like how we have like psychopathic killers. Kind of like there's just this urge to commit violence.
Yeah.
And he has this kind of redemption arc in the show where it's like
he does an amazing job with it.
Yeah, he's fighting against it. I'm playing a Betazoid in a tabletop game we're both in right now. So it was something I was like looking up like, who are Beta? What the?
Yeah,
and I totally missed that part in Voyager.
He's only in 3 episodes. He has a great arc.
Yeah.
And he has that quiet, like, creep, like, unhinged quality.
There's very few actors I feel like that really get that vibe, because they like to get, everybody likes to think, oh yeah, I can play up the charming part. But there's the unsettling part, because people like that just don't understand social norms. So there's little tics that we all have because of social norms that they don't. Fan flailing aside and getting over myself. So he's voicing who again?
No, he is not voicing. He is playing Saavedra.
This is video capture, so we're not talking about voice acting like we do with most video games.
He said it was fun.
Okay.
I couldn't find much on what he thought about doing with Myst. I remember him saying that it was fun. All the graphics were done before he even did his part, like all the renders and stuff.
Oh, so he knew what he was going to be in?
But of course, this was the days of blue screen, so everything was blue.
Oh, yeah.
So he said it was difficult, but a fun experience.
Well, it must be so difficult to act when you can only see half or less of what's going on. So
Now, Saavedra is more of a victim than he is a villain. He's definitely the antagonist.
But I love a complicated villain. Give it to me.
But he is much more a victim than he is a villain.
So he's responding to something.
Yes. Saavedra was a scholar and educator on Narayan. He had a wife, Tamra, and 2 daughters.
Okay.
Saavedra aspired to be an elder, but was neither an isolationist nor tradition-bound. He was a freethinker, a dreamer teacher, quote-unquote.
Oh, so he had aspirations outside of the structure of the society he was in.
One day, Atreus came to their village as a friend, claimed to be from a faraway place. Fair.
So he's very much of the... Again, Atreus is very much about treating everybody equally, and probably also hyper cautious now, because now that he sees like the generation before him messed up with the God complex, the generation that he wrought messed up with the God complex, I think he's just going to start anew with we're just going to pretend we're not godly in any sense of the word.
So he wanted to kind of learn about the lattice tree, which I would too. He stayed for 2 months while Saavedra showed him their customs, and Saavedra showed them how they spliced different parts of the tree together to create a stronger lattice. He showed him how to coax the puffer spore closer through flute playing.
Wow.
Yeah. Very mystical aspect to it. And even has Atreus capture the spore with a net. Like, yeah.
So their physics can kind of resemble magic when they're writing the art. Okay.
It is because Atreus is so keen on learning and maybe saving the Narayani from this endless labor of crafting their very living space.
Right.
That Saavedra agrees to teach Cirrus and Achenar. Basically, if the kids get some more custom, maybe they'll
learn from something, and so Atreus was showing them, you do not let them know who you are.
At this point, this is why, so this next part is why I think this is after the Black Pirates. When the boys first arrived, Saavedra was shocked by how young they appeared. Basically, they look like Atreus, but younger.
Yeah.
Yet they seemed different. He says they're more impatient, and they're angry that they're not being treated like men. Got some chips on their shoulders.
Already. And they're probably, 12, 13, 14
Something
maybe.
around there probably. Would be my guess. Maybe a little later, but not too much later if they're how young that he is shocked by.
Yeah. So I remember previously I theorized, the difference between there was an idea that Cirrus abused Achenar because Cirrus was the true,
right.
The true, bad seed, and it abused Achenar to make Achenar a fellow bad seed, just with a different expression of it. It's the difference between a sociopath and a psychopath, which I won't say which one's which because I mix up the two words way too much, and it's also changed in the nomenclature several different times.
So the very fact that they were there has an effect on Narayani society.
The fact that these two spoiled, possibly broken boys were there.
Starts to emerge a generational gap. Factions of younger Narayanis who didn't understand the significance of these ceremonial duties then began to question everything and distance themselves from the elders.
But if you begin to question something that is essentially, literally the foundation of everything you live on, you endanger society.
Yeah. 5 years later, the brothers returned. And that's why I think that they're maybe around 12 and maybe a little older.
Yeah.
Because at this point, this is when Catherine and Atreus are trapped, and this is the boys' spree.
Oh.
So they questioned why the Narayani had to work so hard and showed their father's linking books with other worlds where people could live without working as hard.
Oh, my. Okay. Wow. You just wrote. I mean, that's an existential crisis brought to you by, almost a prophetic bringers of the apocalypse kind of event, right? Yeah. This is kind of like the fable of, the conquistadors on the white horse, being, foretold when they met the natives on South American shores. That, which I don't even think that's necessarily true, but it's the story that we were taught as kids to kind of justify the fact why colonialism happened.
Yeah. Then they lied that they had mastered the art and could fix Narayan so they could survive more easily.
Oh, no.
They systematically blamed their father, the creator, who wrote Narayan to be unstable and merciless, with doomed natives to endlessly toil, as a lesson to his sons of how our age should not be written.
Oh, so now this poor guy believes that Atreus brought his sons here to mock everything he ever knew of his identity.
They asked to arrange a meeting with the elders, but the elders refused to believe them, saying that abandoning their traditions will cause the tree to die.
The elders have a really good stance here. Hey, so this guy came in, and he kind of just wanted to see what we were doing and hung out with us and understood us for months. You guys were little jerks when you came in. You come back 5, 6, 7 years later. You're still young, wet behind the ears, and you're going to try to convince us that everything we know about our civilization's a lie and try to change our society for what? Just for fun? Just for your own amusement?
Well,
get out of my house.
The brothers perceived that there is this discord in society and promised to help, but only if all inhabitants, including the elders, concurred with them. They knew this wouldn't happen.
They're just here to cause the chaos.
Yes. And they go to the young people and approach all the dissatisfied young men and secretly orchestrate malcontent against the elders, the rituals, and traditions. Tamra told Saavedra to talk to the young and calm them down, but he felt he was unable to, as the brothers' speeches were very convincing.
Well, Cirrus in particular has basically shown that he's a good persuader, and that's kind of his game and his shtick, is that he's going to convince you. Achenar is very much more the fear mongering.
Brutish.
Yeah, the brute, exactly.
Youth screamed that they didn't want to sacrifice their lives to the tree as the elders had done before them, while the brothers secretly enjoyed the confusion they were creating. Saavedra was dismayed at how much he was blinded by their lies. Like, he kind of gets, like, something's weird.
Right.
But he doesn't know what it is. Like, something's wrong.
Well, he didn't think anything was right about them from the get-go. So his gut was giving him the right vibes.
And the brothers sowed discontent and encouraged unrest and violent resistance. They led gangs of young, boycotting the rituals. Small insurrections led to larger riots. The fighting tore the people apart and led to civil war.
Meanwhile, who's maintaining this tree that they all have to live on top of?
The brothers badly miscalculated how badly the chaos and disruption could endanger the civilization. The tree was neglected due to the clashes. Its roots were overgrown and became black. The branches were strangled and the steam turned the buildings red.
Oh, no.
No one was there to guide the spores to the branches. They floated up and burst.
What the heck?
Basically,
Seriously?
if nobody guides it, it just goes up and poof. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Soon the latticework structures began to degrade and structural failure decimated several villages.
Of course it did, because if there's nobody there to tend it, I mean, it's like trying to manage an orchid you've had.
Yeah. Yeah. While the age was collapsing, the brothers salvaged all they considered worthy.
Basically gems, trinkets.
Yeah. During a nasty riot, the brothers were almost arrested by elder loyalists, but they managed to escape Narayan.
Interesting.
Saavedra followed them through the linking book, basically his first time ever going through one, and he has no idea what's going on, but he goes through begging them to fix things.
Because he thinks they can fix it because that was their claim.
Yeah. The brothers lured him inside the tusk. This is in Jananan.
So they go back to the first world, Jananan, which has no people in there.
No. It has some animals, it has some plants, doesn't have much else.
Right.
The brothers lured him inside the tusk where they waited for him. They beat him severely and tied him up. They explained that they didn't intend or know how to fix Narayan, but only salvage what was worth taking from the world as it was easy pickings.
Right, because they're completely selfish, horrible, power-hungry individuals.
Yeah. Lighting a bonfire, they linked away, leaving behind the Myst linking book to burn.
Oh, interesting.
In his agony, Saavedra helplessly saw his only chance of escape burning in the fire.
Mm-hmm.
Trapped on Jananan for years, he managed to escape his binds eventually. He hoped that Tamara had survived and was tending to the ailing lattice roots, but he has no idea. Being a scholar, though, he found out the purpose of Jananan and the other training ages.
Right, so he realized that he was part of a training age. He was a tool to essentially a god.
He spent some months solving the puzzles, hoping to gain access to the machine that kept the Narayan linking book. When he finally links back to Narayan, he found himself in the linking chamber inside of a strange ice shield barrier. Because all the linking chambers that Atris does are secured in some way. That's the whole point of Myst 1, is to get to the linking chamber. When you get to a world, you have to get back out. And he doesn't know how to turn this shield off, but he can see Narayan through the shield dimly, and he just sees drifting tree fragments.
Oh, no.
And he's convinced at this point that the tree has died and that nobody's alive.
Oh, but he doesn't know for sure.
Right, he can't see. He returned to Jananan, and the fog first engulfed him. Basically, this is his mind just going crazy.
Okay.
And out of loneliness and painful memories and despair, the fog rushed in his head. And when it was thick enough, he could lose himself there, forget everything, and be safe. And he had forgotten everything. Who he was, his daughters, his wife.
Right.
20 years of exile drove him mad.
20. Okay, I'm trying to understand the ages of Atris and Catherine at this point. Oh, but also, does time move differently in these ages compared to...
That, I can't answer that. As far as Catherine is, for all intents and purposes, human.
Right.
Atris is not.
Right.
Atris lives hundreds of years.
Oh, because he's enough to need that he's got that... But I'm just thinking in the terms of, like, the age gap between the Cirrus and Achenar and then this baby. Like, I'm just trying to think of, like, how old were they when that happened? Were they really just, like, in their early 20s when we finally put them back in those jail books?
So let's say that Cirrus and Achenar were... I'm trying to remember how old Atris is when he meets Katran.
They were young. They were...
Yeah, but I think... At the end of Book of Atris, I think they're at least 18.
Right.
Or 19.
So they could have started a family right away.
So add on at least, let's say Cirrus and Achenar are 13. old enough to be devious and conniving, and then add on 5 years for them to be going through their spree.
So they're literally at the age where they'd be like graduating high school, entering college, or getting their first job, whatever it'd be. So
and then add on another 20 years, and now we have Yisha.
Add another 20 years?
Yeah.
So
let's say Catherine was 18 at the end of Book of Atris.
So that's 18 plus 13 plus 5 plus 20.
Yeah.
She's not human.
No, she's not.
But so her age range would.
But essentially, she like.
Because that means she's in her 60s when she.
Yeah, we don't have an age range for the Rivenese, so we don't know how long they live or anything.
Right. You know what? It's just me trying to understand the math, and of course, I'm thinking of it in human terms, and also like, not anything. If you're gonna tell a compelling story like this, okay, maybe the ages don't make sense.
It doesn't matter.
I would also be willing to accept that time, if you stay in an age, that time is totally different there than when you exit it and you're in like Denis.
Time could be totally different for all we know.
Yeah. I think so.
So one day, Saavedra is lying in the reeds near the tusk.
Yes.
And he sees Atris appear on the cliff above holding a book.
Okay.
He thought it was Death who came for him.
Oh.
He attempted to shout at him, but couldn't speak. It's been years.
Who's he talking to?
Right.
Yeah. Unless he'd be like me and just like talking to himself mad half the time.
And before he could do anything else, Atris disappears. Able to move sometime later, Saavedra found the book atop the cliff. He sensed an unexplained fear from the book, probably having forgotten the last time he linked getting him trapped here, because it's been 20 years. Mm-hmm. It's probably just, if not completely forgotten, just a vague memory at this point. Mm-hmm. Then he started to remember slowly who he was, and he begins to write a journal, attempting to dispel the fog and recollect his life.
Right.
And this is why we have such a detailed information for his thoughts on everything, because he has a long journal.
He basically made sure he remembered every part of himself he needed to. Okay.
And despite the fear, he eventually uses the book Atris left behind.
Yeah,
which links to Tamana.
Right.
And he goes to Tamana with one purpose, to kill Atris and his family.
Because he is convinced Atris is the reason why everything is ruined. Yeah. Which, that's a double-edged sword. Atris is the reason that everything in your life ever happened.
Right.
Everything.
Well, could it have happened anyway, and just Atris never would have found it?
Yeah, I guess it's also the theory of, is it that the books are linking to another universe that already existed, and and the art is discovering a random universe generator?
Yeah.
Or is the art actually creating something?
I look forward to hearing people's thoughts.
Yeah, add Lore Together. Let us know what you think about that.
However, in Tamana, Saavedra was alone. Nobody was home. And so he started searching, and he found Atris's journals and pored over them.
Uh-oh.
Memories flooded his head too fast, filling with despair, and he wanted to lose himself back in the fog, but his hatred kept him relatively sane.
Right.
He also made a discovery. Reading Atris's Relishan journal and his project to give new life to the Denis, Saavedra mistakenly thought that Atris could revive dead worlds with the art.
Oh, no.
His plans therefore changed. Instead of killing him, he intended to lure him and force him to repair his world, which is fair.
I don't know if I would go there. Obviously, this is somebody who's 20 years far gone.
Right.
Completely mad. But also...
You feel for him.
I feel for him, but also I don't think I would go towards hostage writing of a book, because if somebody's that powerful, they could also trick you into jumping into something you don't want. Yeah. I think you'd fare better to do more of a barter with somebody with that much power over you.
Yeah, but he decides to steal the descriptive book of Relishan until Atris repaired Narayan for its return. Now, for the following months, he traveled to the Lesson Ages and made changes to the puzzles, so Atris would have to actually struggle. It can't just be like, oh no, these solutions. He wiped out Atris's old imagery recordings to his sons, basically, teach here, do this, yeah.
The lessons are gone,
and inserted his own. He painted 3 murals in each stage and scattered various pages of his journal to reveal the havoc wreaked in Narayan by the brothers. Basically, he painted murals of what they did, and he left journals of what they did.
So this is an ego revenge trip he's on right now.
I think it's more like you have no idea what your kids did. Because, of course, he doesn't know what happened to the library in Myst. He has no idea what Myst is.
I'll say this. Even when somebody is completely awful, they usually know what their kid has done or what their kid is capable of.
Yeah.
So I honestly think most parents, even if they're lying to themselves, part of them knows exactly how capable their children are.
Ours is a little devious guy.
Oh, no. And I think we're very honest with ourselves about how clever little Buddy is. But I feel like most parents know exactly what their kids are capable of doing. And so it's more of an ego trip for him, for his revenge, to be able to make sure somebody knows what he suffered. For him, this is like a twisted version of therapy. I honestly, if you're a parent, you know what your kid is capable of doing and not doing to a certain extent. Like, we don't know the kind of person, little Buddy's 18 months. We don't know the kind of person he's going to be when he's an adult.
Right.
But I would say, Mystic, like, your parents know what you're capable of doing, and my parents know what I'm capable of doing and the kind of person I am. Don't start with the evil guy fingers that nobody can see over the microphone. But I really think that, most parents, when you raise a kid, you know what they're capable of. I think Atris secretly knew that his kids... I mean, come on, he spits it out the first time you see anything about Atris. You see that image to Catherine.
Yeah.
And he literally says, I think, one of the boys must have done this. I think it was probably Hakinar.
No, he doesn't tell you that. He just says, I think it's one of our sons.
He does say probably Hakinar. He does mention Hakinar.
I may be mistaken, or you may be mistaken. I can't remember.
I know you mentioned that in the first episode too.
I suspect Akinar, but yeah, he's not sure though.
Yeah. Yeah, he suspects Akinar. But so he knows what his kids are capable of doing. And Saavedro, who has daughters, who his daughters may not have been grown, but he knew who they were as people to a certain extent. He knew what they were capable of. If you're a parent, you know what your child is capable of. So I think Saavedro is doing it for himself. He's just needs to get this out. This is the closest to therapy he's ever going to get. It's the best revenge that he can think of at the time.
Yeah.
And he has nobody stopping him on a compassionate human to human level.
Yeah, well, he's been completely exiled for 20 years.
Completely isolated. You're right. He's completely sympathetic, but
yeah.
I don't think he needs to. I don't think he's telling Atris something that Atris doesn't know.
That's fair. But with all his modifications completed, he links to Tamana, steals Relishon, which is where we begin.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And so essentially, I'm assuming then Exile is us retracing these steps and figuring out exactly Saavedro's plot.
Yeah, basically we go through, we solve all the different lessons of the instruction ages and make our way to Narayan where Saavedro is. Now, this whole time he's leaving you little messages and stuff and all that thing, but he doesn't know that you're not Atris. He's not actually confronting you personally. He's just leaving little messages for Atris.
He believes that it has to be Atris. He didn't think that maybe Atris has, I don't know, friends?
No.
Or his own family?
Well, he knows he has
outside of his sons.
Yeah.
Where did sons come from? Do you think he just wrote a book? Like, I wrote a book and then I had sons. Like, that's not how the art works.
I'm sure it does somewhere.
That
sounds bad.
You had to think really hard about that too.
So once Saavedro realizes that it's not Atris following him, when we finally come face to face with him,
right?
But we're both kind of trapped at this point with no way back.
Oh, we filed everything to its conclusion.
Yeah, because the ages themselves have no story beyond being lessons.
And Saavedro did this all to get Atris because Atris is the one who can write his world back.
Yeah.
And then he gets this dude.
Yeah.
Or dudette, excuse me. He gets this person.
Yeah. But there's a difference now. Saavedro couldn't open the ice shield because if you open one, it's like an airlock.
So
if
you
one
need
is
two people.
You need two people. Yeah.
Okay.
And you can lower the outer one without lowering the inner one, and he can see that Narayan is not destroyed. The tree is growing. There's people. He was just unable to see it and get to it.
So he saw tree fragments and assumed the worst.
Yes.
And then basically angered himself to madness.
Yes.
And didn't bother to think that his perception was skewed. After essentially this story feels like it's a parable for the whole idea of skewed perception.
He couldn't see through the ice shield and just saw vague shadows. But given all the information he had that the world was crumbling as he was like chasing the brothers, it's not exactly a far leap to make.
Okay.
I would say.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's an airlock. So he needs the stranger to open it. And this is where all the good and bad endings can come from. And all the bad endings are various permutations of what you do with the lock, with the airlock.
Okay.
If you lower the outer one, he just tosses Relishan into the ocean and goes.
Oh.
Because he doesn't trust you. He's so full of hatred at this point that he's completely unhinged. He just tosses into the ocean depths.
Even though then it turns out he didn't need it. He didn't need to hold anybody hostage
right.
in the first place.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
There's other permutations. If you open the inner one, he comes up and attacks you.
Right, and you have to defend yourself, or
You don't manage to defend yourself. If you go back to Tamana, he comes
oh wow,
and kills Atris.
oh wow.
If you and of course you can also be a complete jerk.
Yeah.
And the way you win, quote unquote, is trapping him between both doors. Basically, you close the one and you don't let him out. And then he realizes that he's kind of at your mercy.
Right.
He'll give you the book, and then you have two options.
Okay.
One is a jerk move.
One is your own revenge, it sounds like.
Leave him between the two doors and go. And then you get the good ending for the most part, but Atris is basically laments that he probably would have done things differently.
Oh.
With Saavedro. And so the good ending is to, when you have him trapped, you get the book and then you let him go.
Mm-hmm.
And he heads home after a lifetime away.
Wow. Yeah, his daughters might have their own daughters at this point and everything. Whoa. That's intense.
Like I said, a much more sympathetic villain than Gen.
Much more sympathetic. I feel like, again, the conversations as psychopaths and sociopaths were in earnest when we were talking about the other
Here it's like you have to
episodes.
couch it with he's crazy because he's been exiled and tortured and...
Yeah, I mean, there's all the studies that talk about what solitary confinement does to a person. And that's another thing, too, is like, yeah, the good ending is that you let him go home, but it's one of those situations like he's been a prisoner for 20 years at the mercy of a random decision by two young men who never really had to answer to him what they did.
Right.
Can he really ever go home again? Like, that's...
We can hope so. We have no idea once he leaves.
That is I gotta look up on Archive of Their Own. That has to be a fan fiction. Somebody wrote him coming home and trying to figure out how to be a regular person again.
I just realized I didn't watch the ending cinematics for the good ending.
Yeah.
I kind of stopped once I realized he was going home. So I didn't listen to Atris's whole letter or his journal entry.
Yeah.
And I'm going to kick myself if we do hear what happened to Saavedro and I just missed it. And I'm sure someone will point it out.
Just add us at lore together. Let us know what he does. But by that point, we probably will have heard it. But everybody else who's listening to the episode should know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's insane. This story kind of builds up on a lot of themes. The theme in every game, and I feel like I heard this before,
is the brothers and their grandfather.
No. In every game, for me, it's more the theme of isolation. Like, I feel like I heard this before, even before we were doing the show, is that there's this perception of, like, you have to figure this out alone. And so in Myst, you're definitely alone. Like, the only people that are reaching out to you are two liars, right?
In books.
And you have to try to I mean, we didn't do it a lot on our playthroughs because we know who they are, but like they continue to go on and lie at you over and over and over and try to convince you that they're the better of the two brothers because they're so selfishly motivated. And then in Riven, you are
alone except for you see a few people.
You're socially isolated. Like you're in the midst of this obviously thriving community to a certain extent.
Yeah.
To a certain extent, obviously the world is doomed.
Yeah.
But to a certain extent, thriving community. But because of who you're connected with and where you came from, you're a threat to their way of life, and their leader, aka God Boy Gen, is isolating you. And then in this third one, you're not isolated anymore. You're gonna actually get to hang out with people and like be social again and have a life. Now that you understand Atris and you've probably helped him. build this island of these refugees and kind of...
Nah, I don't know if you did that, but you
Well, you've probably become, like, you can't...
You are a friend. You are not just... Yeah.
You can't go back to Earth. Let's...
Well, you're on Earth.
Oh.
At this point. Tamana is on Earth.
Tamana is on Earth.
Yeah. After Riven, you went back home. You were back on your own place.
So you came back. But you're such good friends with Atris, you were just helping him out.
Now, when on Earth time everything takes place, I don't know.
Who knows? I still think the time continuum is all wibbledy-wobbledy. But anyway, so then you're dealing with isolation. So you're not isolated anymore. You got to go back home.
Right.
You're still friends with the dude who you were like, oh, you write worlds. This is actually a really cool hobby, even though I kind of was taken hostage in 2 of the things you did.
Yeah.
So, but you're not the one who's isolated anymore. You are now facing the isolation of somebody else who's had it to the extreme.
Yeah. And I think you're right, because Myst 4, you are isolated at points, but there is definitely other characters you're dealing with.
Right.
Beyond just an introductory Atris, here, go in the book,
Right.
Uru kind of has other people, especially if you're playing the online version. There's obviously people.
Yeah.
And Myst 5 has a couple NPCs who will help you out.
Right.
So
it's not the same feeling. It's not the whole, I have to be resourceful. I have to be clever. I have to figure this out myself. And they all have the possibility of you were not clever enough. All of the games.
Yeah.
The first 3. Yeah.
They all do. They all have every single one has a bad ending. Like Abduction had a bad ending that we stumbled into.
Oh my gosh. That was,
during our stream.
I wanted to cry. I
think this was a pretty good return to Myst. I think it's going to be a while before we get back to it, though.
Yeah.
Not as long, though. I think this is almost 30 episodes since we last talked about it. So
it is almost 30 episodes. For us, this is the reason we keep going back to this is that this is the kind of storytelling that compels us to play video games.
Yeah.
This is why we like playing video. I mean, not every video game needs to be stories. There's totally, like, if you listen to a Patreon episode, there's totally legitimate reasons to go for Tetris, or Chime, or Broforce, or anything where that's not the focus. And there's other reasons to play video games. But for us, the reason we love video games is it's an art form. And we think and we see it more of as a storytelling art form, and we like to celebrate that. And Myst, like, there's a reason we started our series with it. Myst just does it really well with the kind of game it's trying to do. It's not the only one that does it really well, but I mean, I think it was pivotal in video game history in general. And I think there's a reason why. It's one of the first ones you also encountered when we did Art of Video Games exhibit that was at the Smithsonian.
Right. Yeah.
We went there, and that is literally, you turn the corner, it's like, Myst was blah, 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 and you are now set in here. And it was very much talking about that being the art. So we'll always be coming back to that until we cover the entire series. And then I have a feeling that won't mean we'll cover everything.
I still want to do books. And my hope is that we'll still get a continuation to Myst at some point. They do kind of say that they maybe want to do some more stuff in it. So
if they want to, great. If not, I think it's fine to put down a creative project.
Yeah.
And do it justice.
So I'm going to do this on air, but I'm not going to tell you what it is.
Uh-oh.
So I want you to pick 1, 2, or 3.
Oh, man. 3.
Okay. Next time we'll be doing a newer game.
I don't even know what I picked. I feel like I've probably played myself in some way, shape, or form.
I think you'll like this one.
I hope so.
Yeah. If anyone's wondering, I texted a friend all the episodes I was working on, in a row, and you just picked from the 3 that were left from the Myst. I had Myst and then 3 other ones.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, I guess that's our episode. Thanks for indulging us as we talk about one of our favorite series.
Yes. Thank you very much.
All right. Catch you next time. Oh, catch you on the live streams too on Thursdays.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.